Okay, so we're getting close to your final draft of your researched analysis and argument paper. And I've been grading your papers or looking over your rough drafts, and I want you to be aware of a few things. There's a few things that I'm seeing consistently that I want you to check for as you're preparing for your final draft. So first of all, I'm having you do quoting as you are writing your paper. So you're choosing quotes from different resources to describe unique perspectives, to explain specific points, and to illustrate different things. Make sure that whatever you're quoting, that you're unpacking that quote as a way of digging into the discussion. So when you quote something from one of your resources, make sure you extrapolate from it, discuss why you thought that was a pertinent quote. What about that quote was interesting to you or challenging to you or helped you understand the nuance or the variety within the topic that you're pursuing. So whatever quote you're using, you need to dig into it after you quote it and really unpack it in a way that helps you explain the topic in a bigger way. The second thing, make sure you're checking for sentence fluidity, your grammar, your spelling, your capitalization, your punctuation, etc. I know that sounds really mundane, but I can't tell you how many of you have just simple errors in your sentences. You misspell simple words. You have capital sentences where you shouldn't. You have things not capitalized that should be, like United States. The U is capitalized and the S is capitalized in the United States. Always. Don't get docked for that kind of stuff. So make sure you're going through your paper with a fine-tooth comb to check for stuff like that. Also, as you're doing that, make sure that your sentences sound good. Read them out loud to yourself. Read them out loud to someone else if you can. How does it sound out loud? That often helps me, and I know a lot of people understand if the sentence is actually really coherent and fluid. So make sure you're doing that. The next thing, I want to talk about how you're quoting, some of the technical things within quoting, and I want to talk about ellipses a little bit. And I know I explained that, but some of you are quoting things and the first letter within your quote is not capitalized. Now maybe that's because you're starting in the middle of a sentence, and if so, you do an ellipses, kind of like this. You see the ellipses, 3 dots, the quotation marks, 3 dots, and then you start in the middle of a sentence or a phrase. And then the S is not capitalized. But you can't do that and just have the quote right next to the S. If you're doing that, you're either forgetting to capitalize your first letter of your quote, or you're not using ellipses properly. So that's the third thing that I want you to be aware of. And the last thing, if you have a quote within a quote, so you're quoting a phrase or a chunk of text, and within that quote, there's somebody being quoted. And this is how you do that. So there's quotation marks. The 2 double quotation marks are what you always have to start your quotes. Quotes within something you want to quote are done like this. So you notice there's 1 quotation mark. This is a quote within a body of text that I want to quote. And then at the end here, I have 3 quotation marks indicating the end of the quote within the quote, and then indicating the end of my quote that I'm trying to quote. I know that this is confusing and not easy to understand over video lessons, but hopefully that gives you some ideas about how to pursue some of these complicated aspects of quoting and essay writing in general. Especially the quote within a quote and the ellipses. These can move around and they can kind of be anywhere. So the beginning quote, wherever it started right here, this could be at the beginning. The end quote here, it could be in the middle somewhere. They can shift around. So the quote within the quote is surrounded by single quotation marks. Your quote is surrounded by double quotation marks. And then the ellipses can go wherever they are appropriate. Beginning of the quote, end of the quote, in the middle somewhere.